The story unfolds in Washington, D.C., in a close neighborhood in which there is a school the characters attend. It is situated in the 70s, and it seems all the characters are unfamiliarized with black people, and sometimes even hostile against them. Osei is the main character of the story, and he has a lot of opportunities all over the story to make a change in his conditions, such as the one in which Casper gave him a seat at his table at lunch. The characters who will be acting as main catalysts will be Dee and Ian. The rest of the characters will be secondary or minor ones. In the beginning, we can see Osei's first moments at this new school. He enters and is portrayed as a loner, who is perceived as a strange by every other student in that school. While this happened, a girl named Dee decided to stand right behind him when teachers told students to form lines to enter the classrooms. This school had the tradition of raising the flag every day and to bring it down when the school day came to an end, unless there was a rainy weather. During O's first day, this event took place as usual. During the day, the weather turned rainy, which led to Mimi and Ian to be allowed to go down the stairs to bring the American flag down and put it away. While doing so, Ian managed to seduce the girl and got her to kiss him, staying outside performing an inappropriate action instead of going back to the classroom, but not putting this flag away as well. This event marked the start of a toxic but brief relationship. Osei had a sister named Cece. She used to be really close to him, but became much more distant when she started high school, getting used to hanging out with her new friends and leaving his sibling aside. Osei inherited, so to speak, a pencil case from her, which was pink and contained strawberries, something that made him feel embarrassed and didn't want others to notice. Luckily, while talking to this friendly girl who stood behind him on the line and was now sitting next to him, he was offered an exchange of pencil cases, receiving one with a Snoopy plastic. This object is going to be of full importance later on. The day advanced and O started to get more integrated, and the time to play kickball came. As these students were used to every day before the Ghanaian kids' arrival, teams were selected and the game began. Osei was in Ian's team, the school's bully, who chose him over Rod, Ian's pet, so to speak. At a certain moment, it was the African boy's turn to be the kicker. His shot was so powerful, it got out of the playground and bounced off Casper's parents' car. Popular boy, girls were into. Everybody seemed annoyed and or disappointed they couldn't continue this match, but Dee was impressed at Osei's kick. After the situation which was described before, Osei and Dee sat down one of the cypress trees and began a long conversation. At a certain point, they began to touch each other inappropriately and got spotted by Mr. Brabant. This is one of the key moments in this novel. Such an explicit expression of attraction had never been expressed by these two characters to each other before. Ian starts to interpret this context perfectly well, and as the bully he is, he decided to create a plan. He questioned himself on how it could be possible for this new boy to be flirting and kissing the most attractive girl of their grade, something he couldn't stand. Ian was wise and developed a plan from this moment to the end of the novel, which would progressively turn Osei against Dee after realizing she would never hate this black boy.
Rod, as the obedient and useful pet he is to Jan, received and complied with an order he got from his master. Ian thought as a part of his huge plan to create a fight between Rod and Casper. The plan was that Rod would insult Blanca, Casper's current girl, so that he would go crazy and jump in her defense. What would Rod get in exchange? D, or at least that is what Ian promised, since he knew his pet was deeply in love and would do anything to get her. Everything unfolded as intended. Casper punched Rod and left him with a purple eye, being later on given suspension. Blanca felt disgusted at the situation, and her friends, including Dee, complained about how Casper was innocent, which let's say made O kind of jealous. Ian's plan was starting to make sense. Mimi couldn't put up with a toxic relationship anymore and was courageous enough to express this to his boyfriend. He did not like the idea of breaking up, but the whole atmosphere changed when he saw a suitcase she was carrying with her. Ian felt interested in it, and Mimi explained it belonged to her best friend, Dee. Ian saw this as an excellent opportunity to grab that pencil case and invent something in his favor. He tried to convince her to give it to him, and although she was reticent at first, she saw this as the only way to end their relationship, a pencil case for her liberty. It was not that bad at the end. Ian chose to offer this case to Blanca, who was also friends with Mimi and Dee, telling her that Casper, the popular boy she felt attracted to, wanted her to have it. The bully's idea to make Ozzy realize his girl was not in possession of that element anymore and had given something which was valuable to Ozzy away. The plan worked out perfectly. Blanca was seen by Ozzy with the case and was told by Ian she received it from Casper. Let's also point out Ian constantly remarked Dee and Casper had always been interested in each other. This false claim with which the new boy was indoctrinated with made him believe that Dee gave the pencil case to Casper, something that made him furious. He then approached to Dee, and while she talked to him, he seemed uninterested in her words, and he finally started discussing with her, telling Dee how betrayed he felt, and as he heard Dee denying every single thing he accepted as factual, he pushed her harshly to the ground, injuring her head severely. Everybody came to rescue Dee, and after denying Ozzy had anything to do with her bleeding and injury, she was sent to the school's nurse with Mimi, her best friend. Meanwhile, the black kid was full of rage. He was lied about Dee taking the case to her house, about her not being attracted to Casper, or at least, that is what he thought.
The day passed, and Ozzy was progressively becoming more distant from Dee. Let's take as an example when the class started creating presents for Mother's Day, and Ozzy completely ignored Dee. Now, the final part has arrived. Ozzy climbed on top of the bars at the jungle gym. Dee approached him and started to talk with him. The boy told her to climb up, so that she could see something in particular. Already up there, Ozzy pointed at Blanca's backpack, highlighting the strawberry case was right there. Dee tried to defend herself, but it was in vain. Ozzy told her Ian had been right all this time, and although she tried to argue Ian was not to be trusted, he kept on with his narrow-minded way of thinking. Dee surrendered, climbed down, and as she walked away, she was constantly being called by Ozzy, who asked her to come back. He ended up getting tired of not getting a response, and this is when we see the black boy's full hatred being put on display. He shouted at her, "Whore!" and the whole playground muted for some seconds. Nobody could believe it. He had said a word which was almost considered a sin to say. Following, he continued shouting, but now explaining everybody who was witnessing the situation how Dee had lied to him. She could not put up with that situation anymore, and ran away, and was never to be seen again during the novel. Mimi came close to the bars and tried to make Ozzy come to his senses and explain her why he had said those nasty comments about her best friend. O answered by inviting her to climb up, so that she could see exactly what Dee saw. When Ian saw the situation, he realized his plan was about to be destroyed, and that he would get exposed. This is why he got close to Mimi, and while she was climbing up, he grabbed her by the legs and started to throw her down, causing a scandal to break out at the playground. Mrs. Lode came in crying and screaming for help, while Mimi was laying on the ground, surrounded by a puddle of blood. While on the floor, she pointed at the suitcase inside of Blanca's backpack, asking Osei, "Is this what you were going to show me?" Osei nodded. After this, Mimi explained the actual reality to O, which made him know who the actual person to blame for what everything was. Finally, Mr. Brevent appeared and ordered Osei to climb down many times, and after not receiving a response, he unleashed his hidden racism by calling him a nigger. He simply did not care about Mrs. Lode saying he had not been the one who injured Mimi. He simply assumed he was the victimizer, as he had actually been with Dee before, when she covered him up. Osei decided to respond to Brabant by asking him if he wanted him to go down, and he finally jumped from the bars, or more specifically, he plummeted, as the book specifies, but not before shouting, "Black is beautiful," a phrase he heard from his sister. Osei, as a main character, could not benefit from all the possibilities he had. He had a girl who really liked him for the first time after attending to 4 different schools, had the chance to completely ignore Ian and become Casper's friend, but he chose the path of jealousy. That is why Osei is the towering figure of a fallen hero. He couldn't make a change even when he had all the situations for it.